You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Streak busting in Jacksonville? No, just the Colts busted in Jacksonville. Indianapolis losing a key early AFC South matchup 37-20 to the Jacksonville Jaguars as their incredible streak of losing road games continues to the Jaguars. That is now the 9th time that they have lost in a road contest against Jacksonville. I wrote up an article for the website on that if you want to check that out, of their previous 8 losses and how this weird sort of record, not really a record, but this weird streak has developed over the years. It doesn't seem to matter who the coach is, what the scheme is, who the quarterback is, what the philosophy of the team is. They are going to go to Jacksonville and they are going to lose. Before we discuss the game anymore, let's take a look at Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson now. Depending upon the time that you listen to this podcast, there may have been a decision made on this one way or the other, but it is looking like the Colts and Richardson are leaning toward having him get surgery on his injured right shoulder. Coach Shane Steichen last week said the surgery hasn't been ruled out. Richardson, when asked about it during the game, was really non-committal on the whole thing, but, it remains an open possibility. There was a report from Ian Rappaport via the NFL Network that the Colts would increasingly looking like that was going to be the thing that will happen here. So by the time you listen to this podcast, depending upon when you listen to it, the Colts may have made a decision. As of now, Anthony Richardson remains on the injured reserve and would be able to return after 4 weeks. All right, so let's talk about this latest debacle in Jacksonville. It didn't start off so bad for the Colts. Really, it didn't. They had a nice drive, 16 plays, 65 yards, covered 8 minutes and 33 seconds of game clock. Gardner Minshew completed his first 9 pass attempts for the Colts there. They got all the way down to the Jacksonville 10, but couldn't quite convert on a 3rd and 5. I think Minshew was looking for Josh Downs, couldn't quite hook up with him there. So that led to a 28-yard field goal to give the Colts a 3-0 lead. Matt Gay, of course, providing the points there. And that was pretty much the only time the Colts were in this game. The Jaguars responded with a long drive of their own, 13 plays, 75 yards, covering 7 minutes and 10 seconds, aided by a pair of Colts penalties, including a neutral zone infraction from DeForest Buckner that turned a 3rd and 4 into a first down. That was a key moment on that drive. It ended with a 6-yard touchdown run from Travis Etienne. That made it 7-3. So you're thinking, all right, Colts have a long drive. They only get a field goal. Jaguars have a long drive. They get a touchdown. So it's still early in the game. Let's see how the Colts respond. Well, unfortunately, they didn't respond very well. Very first offensive play after the kickoff, Gardner Minshew gets sacked. It was Bernhard Raimann getting beaten off the left side there on a speed rush from Josh Allen, one of the best pass rushers in the league. He hit Minshew, who fumbled the ball, and then the Jaguars recovered it at the 22-yard line. And this just completely turned the game around. On the very next offensive play for the Jaguars, Etienne went 22 yards for a second touchdown. So the Colts, who were down 7-3, are now down 14-3. It's a punt game right after this. Colts punt, 3 and out. Jags punt. Colts punt, 3 and out. Then the Jaguars punt again as the Colts defense kind of holds up a little bit there. Still 14-3 at this point, and you're just like, if the Colts can make a play, maybe they can get back into this thing. And they do make a play. Minshew hits Jonathan Taylor for a 40-yard reception, and the Colts get relatively deep into Jaguars territory, at least in field goal range, you would think. On that same drive, Minshew tried to hook up with Michael Pittman. The ball sailed on him and it got picked off by Jacksonville and returned to the Jacksonville 35-yard line. After that, the Jags take less than 3 minutes to score a touchdown. It's Christian Kirk getting the pass from Trevor Lawrence on a blown coverage. 21-3 Jacksonville. So you have the fumble that turns into a touchdown. Then you have some punts from an ineffective offense. Then that's followed by another interception once you actually hit on a big play, which is not something you had seen much in this game. Immediately turn it over. That gets turned into a touchdown as well. The Colts did manage a field goal to make it 21-6 before halftime. So the second half starts with a Jacksonville punt. So that's not so bad, right? They force a punt. The bad part is Minshew threw another interception. This led to a Jaguars field goal to make it 24-6. And so now the Jaguars with 24 points, 17 of those coming off Colts turnovers. The next Colts drive is a 3 and out. more or less this drive that happened after that 3-and-out is what sealed the game for Jacksonville. They had another nice long drive, got another touchdown to make it 31-6, and that lead really did look insurmountable for a Colts team that just didn't have any answers. So all of a sudden it's 31-6, and the Colts pretty much look dead in the water here. Now, to their credit, they didn't give up completely here. They did fall back, but they scored a touchdown to make it 31-13. It was Josh Downs getting his first career touchdown reception on a short pass from Gardner Minshew. I think it was for 2 yards. And then Indianapolis responded with an interception of its own. Juju Brents took a misfired throw from Trevor Lawrence. Didn't get much of a return on it, went down pretty much immediately, but then suddenly the Colts have the ball at the Jacksonville 40, which, you could get a field goal. You could get something along those lines out of that. Unfortunately, the Colts are not able to muster anything out of that. The drive ends on another interception from Minshew, his third of the day. This one was from Michael Pittman now. Minshew was getting some pressure. He saw the blitz coming, and he kind of threw this ball off on his back foot toward the end zone. Michael Pittman Jr. is waiting there for it, but he's kind of expecting that ball to be on the outside. Instead, it's on the inside, and it's also underthrown. And so Pittman, who, is going to fight for any ball that he can, really can't do much with this one. And it's an easy interception for the Jacksonville defender. Now, this came on a 4th down play. So the Colts could have elected to go for 3 here. At that point, you're thinking, well, it doesn't really do much, but it does make it, a 2-score game at that point if you take the field goal. That puts you at 31-16. That's a 15-point game, so a couple of touchdowns and a 1-2-point conversion would get you right back in it. The defense forced another punt, and then Indianapolis showed another sign of life here. They got another touchdown off the next drive after forcing a 3-and-out from Jacksonville. And this one included a couple of big plays. Minshew hit Granson for 45 yards down the sideline. And then he also got a nice deep pass to Granson for 21 yards. So that really set up the Colts nicely at the Jacksonville 6. They got a short pass to Josh Downs to make it 2nd and goal at the 3. And then Zach Moss does what Zach Moss has been doing very, very well this season, and that's a tough run up the middle to get 3 yards and get the touchdown. Matt Gay adding the extra point there. All of a sudden, this game where it looked like the Colts were not in this thing at all is 31-20. That is a field goal, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion away from tying things up, right? Well, just remember, we are in Jacksonville, and things never go well for the Colts in Jacksonville. And the Colts responded by giving up a huge kickoff return. It was a 53-yard return for Jamal Agnew. That set up another Jacksonville field goal, 34-20. It's still a 2-score game at that point, but you're looking at about, just under 5 minutes left in the game there. The way the Colts have been not able to move the ball that effectively, you don't think that necessarily, maybe they could muster one more touchdown and get a field goal. 2 touchdowns sounds, with the time situation, sounds like it might be a little bit too much for the team to come up with. So who knows what they would have done on that drive, the defense, if Jacksonville hadn't had the big kickoff return. I would like to point out that Agnew also turned around the game in the first matchup between these two teams when he had a 48-yard punt return in that game that really kind of changed the complexity of that one. This wasn't quite as much of a game changer, but it had a deflating effect on the team because here they kind of clawed their way back into it a little bit, and then they give up the big kickoff return, and that sets Jacksonville up for a really easy field goal. And they were able to chop some time off the clock a little bit there, about 2.5 minutes. So the Jaguars would get that field goal to make it 34-20. The Colts would have a turnover on downs deep in their own territory, which would lead to another Jaguars field goal. So now you're looking at 37-20, and the game that was pretty much over anyway is pretty much officially over now. Colts got one more shot at it. They got the ball back, another turnover on downs, and then that led to some kneel downs from the Jaguars. The same old story, though. On the road in Jacksonville, for whatever reason, since 2014, the Colts have not been able to figure out how to beat the Jaguars in a road contest. It does include one game in London in 2016 that they played there, but it's just sort of inexplicable. I think as Colts fans, you did get spoiled for a long time when Manning and Luck were here, And it felt like beating the Jaguars once or twice a year was just something that was always going to happen. And, now the Colts have lost the season series to the Jaguars. They're sitting at 3-3 in the division. Also, look out, the Houston Texans sitting at 3-3 in the division as well. So with the Jaguars at 4-2, they're in the command now of the AFC South, and they hold the tiebreaker outright over the Colts. So in order to leapfrog the Jaguars in the division, the Colts have to finish one game better than they do for the overall record. Because if they were to tie, then Jacksonville is your division champion now. That is certainly an optimistic reading of the divisional standings from yours truly, because I don't know if it's going to be Gardner Minshew for the rest of the season, and it really does look like it's going to be. It's going to be a lot of these types of games. The big problem this week was turnovers and defense not being quite as effective as we would like it to be, but that Jacksonville offense does have some good playmakers. But it's the quick change of field position when your offense turns the ball over that it doesn't really matter how great your defense is when it continually happens in a game. It's demoralizing, and you're going to have some breakdowns. And that's exactly what happened to the Colts this week. A really disappointing performance by the Colts, unable to break that streak in Jacksonville. Let's hear from head coach Shane Steichen.
Hey, guys. First off, just injury-wise, Alec has a shoulder pierce, and then just, debriefing the game. Obviously got ourselves in a hole there, with the turnovers. We got to be better there. It starts with myself doing a better job there. But I thought our guys fought hard, and we fought till the end. Obviously, we can't put ourselves in a hole. I got to be better again, like I said. And, hats off to Jacksonville.
Too soon for anything further on Alec?
Yeah, I don't know yet. Yeah.
You had a good drive coming out of the gate, the scripted drive, I guess. And just what can you find? What do you think you can find that consistency with?
Yeah, and I think we had the turnover on the next one, the sack fumble there, and then we ran it there a little bit, early on. They did a good job against the run. And then again, we had the interceptions, and then, we ended up having to throw it 50-plus times there to try to get back in it. So, again, hats off to Jacksonville.
You guys kind of came out throwing. Was that just because, Jacksonville's been much better against the run than the pass so far this year?
Yeah, I think, the flow dictates that a little bit, down a distance and how we're feeling and what I'm thinking in those situations. And obviously we came out throwing a little bit there early and, got the 3 points, which we could have, scored there on that first drive with a touchdown. But again, hats off to Jacksonville.
You guys have had such a nice run game this season, so what was so difficult today, do you think?
I think, early on, we had the long drive. I think there was, 2 possessions in the first quarter. Is that right? I think it was something right there. Yeah, it was 2 possessions in the first quarter, and then we were running it a little bit, and we threw it on second, pass situations a little bit there. And, they, like I said, they got some turnovers there, and, we were trying to get back in it with some of the passes, and it's just how it played out today.
So with Jacksonville, look at the box score. There's not a ton of yards in there, and I don't know how you kind of calculate all that. Do you just think they took advantage of those turnovers?
That's exactly right. 17 points off turnovers. That's tough.
With Gardner, he's typically so judicious with the football. What was different about it today? Was it the way that Jacksonville was playing him? Was it something?
Jacksonville did some good things. Obviously, it starts with myself. I got to be better for him in those situations.
Jonathan, you put him out wide for a play, and came across. What did you think of just getting him out in space?
Yeah, no, it was good. It was a third down play. Caught him in man coverage. Got him running across the field with man and hit a big one for a big play there for us.
Felt like it was more 50-50-ish in terms of snaps for him. You feel good about the way he's ramping up?
Yeah, he's ramping up. He's going to continue to ramp up each and every week.
Josh Downs, 5 catches, his first touchdown. How special was it to see him get into the end zone for the first time in his career?
It was awesome. It was a great route by him. He'd been working hard at that route in practice and how to run it different ways. And the way he ran it in the game was awesome. Just to get that separation, get his first touchdown was good to see.
With him and Juju getting his first interception, are you at the point in the year where rookies have to be counted on to do things that not rookies do anymore?
Yeah, I think with any rookie, you put the guys that you think are going to make plays out there, whether they're a rookie or a 5-year vet, put them out there and go play.
The Juju specifically, he went from not playing early, now he's playing all the time. So what did you like just about his progress this season?
I love his tenacity. I love the way he fights, the way he plays man coverage. He's a strong, longer guy that competes at the top of routes, and I just love his energy. All right, guys, appreciate you.
So really the only injury that Coach Steichen mentioned from this game was Alec Pierce. suffering a shoulder injury. Minshew tried to hit him kind of on a deep pass along the sidelines, and Pierce kind of laid out for it, but was unable to catch it. Got hit by a couple of defenders as he was going down, and immediately he went down and needed some help to get off the field. And it looked like he was favoring that right shoulder a little bit there. Pierce not having the most fabulous season of all, but you've seen some flashes here and there from him, and he made a tremendous one-handed catch in this game, and it's tantalizing. He teases you with some of these catches and stuff that he makes, but it's just not consistent enough. But you really want to have him there because they don't have a deep wide receiving core. So when it's all said and done, no real Minshew magic in Jacksonville this week. That's where Minshew started his career, and he was kind of this unheralded guy, picked late in the draft. Nobody expected much from him. And he's just got a great personality and an interesting persona. He's a real character, real student of the game. And the Colts do honestly feel like the game is in good hands when Minshew's their quarterback. He's a guy who doesn't turn the ball over very much. That is kind of his MO as a quarterback. It's, take high percentage throws, get a high percentage of your passes completed. You may not go downfield all the time, but you're going to be accurate and you're going to get that ball down the field little by little by little. The good thing about that is that he is an accurate quarterback. He understands the offense, and we've heard this numerous times from his teammates and the coaching staff. The problem with it is when you have to put together these long drives that consists of pass after pass after pass after pass. When you're looking at these really long drives where you're only getting 5, 6, 7 yards a pop and you're not able to hit big plays, then that also means that the defense is waiting for you to make a mistake. And it, just takes a bad run, a sack, an incompletion, and that ends your drive, and you just cannot recover from it. But, he's made his bones in this league by not turning the ball over, but he threw a career-high 3 interceptions in this game against the Jaguars. And, the biggest impact to me was the fumble. Sometimes you'd like to step into that multiverse, that alternate world where what does this game look like if the Colts don't have that fumble, that sack fumble with Minshew? It happened right after the Jaguars scored a touchdown. They were able to just double up scores just like that and change field position for the Colts. It came on the first play right after the kickoff. Their best pass rusher comes around the left side, blindsides Minshew, who fumbles the ball, gets recovered by the Jaguars, and that's all she wrote for that drive for the Colts. And then right away, next play, boom, you get a 22-yard touchdown run. And suddenly this game that started out, 7-3 with you getting on the scoreboard first is 14-3. And it's just not a great combination for any quarterback, and especially Minshew, because as much as we do like the guy and respect his game, he has his limitations. The team knows he has his limitations as well. On the day, he finished 33 for 55, 329 yards, 1 TD, 3 interceptions in that fumble. He was sacked 3 times. Turnovers very un-Minshew-like, but they are a key factor in this loss. You could even argue that is primarily the reason the Colts lost the game. Anytime you turn the ball over 4 times and you're -3 in this game, they did manage an interception from Juju Brents, but they're -3 in the game. This is a team that cannot afford to beat itself. When you have Richardson in there, it's kind of the same way. You can't beat yourself. But Richardson has big playability that he flashes, that you look at that Rams game, look at some of the plays that he made in that game. And I know the Colts ultimately lost in overtime, but to even get into that game required a lot of moxie. And you were able to do it through big plays via Anthony Richardson. And Minshew made a couple big plays, but you could also argue it happened when this game was out of hand and didn't really matter that much. End of the day, Colts lost. Minshew had the 4 turnovers, and you will not see number 10 making any excuses after the game.
Yeah, no, they did a good job. They got some pressure, but at the end of the day, I was careless with the ball. I didn't do a good enough job taking care of it. Put our team in a really bad spot, and that's not fair to the rest of the guys. So really going to look at this, hold myself accountable. Not going to tuck our tail, not going to drop our chin. We're just going to keep pushing through it, learn from it. And, we'll come out the other side better for it.
Was it just the pressure that they were getting?
So the one to Pitt, I sailed. The other end, I sailed. And then there was a 4th down, cover 0. I dropped and tried to lay a ball up there, and I should have threw it more outside. So, going to learn from it and get better from it.
They're a really good run defense. Is it on you or the receivers to try to loosen them up front to try to allow a little bit more space in the run game, and why weren't you able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. They did a good job. I thought they had a good plan. They were going base to our 11 for a lot of it, so some tough matchups running the ball. So when they do that, we do have to make them pay outside, and I think personally we'll all take that personally as a challenge, and I think we'll respond the right way.
How did you see Josh respond to getting his first career touchdown, a big career accomplishment, but in a 17-point loss?
Yeah, no, that's it's great, it's fun. I remember I had the same thing here, and it was in a blowout, and it feels great. You kind of lose yourself for a little bit because it's the coolest thing ever, and it's like, dang, we're losing by 3 scores.
Did you feel you had a bit of momentum though after that touchdown, and also the Juju pick right after?
Yeah, no, we got it going, man, and just kept shooting ourselves in the foot one way or the other. Personally, I was not good enough. I got to be better to give us a chance to win, because as the game went on, it kept getting closer, and we just didn't take advantage of the opportunities.
All right. This is your first game back in Jacksonville. You came back here as a starter. Did that mean anything to you? I know it's tough in a loss. But.
No, it's tough. It's obviously great to see everybody here. A lot of great memories being here. Obviously, you want to win every game, so that hurts. But yeah, no, it's definitely tough to come back here and play like I did today.
Good. Okay.
Thank y'all.
All right, a few little other things about this game. The Colts had 17 carries for 44 yards against one of the top rushing defenses in the NFL. Zach Moss, who's been so good this season, 7 carries for 21 yards and that short touchdown. Jonathan Taylor, 8 carries for 19 yards. As a team, they averaged 2.6 yards per carry. I heard Steichen say during his news conference, and I also read from Ryan Kelly, that they knew that Jacksonville had a very good defensive front and that they did not think they would be able to run the ball very well against them when they stayed in their base defense. So that's one of the reasons the Colts came out throwing on that first drive. It was almost all passes on that first drive that they got the field goal off of to open the game. And their hope was that if they could get something going in the passing game, even if it was the short passing game or the intermediate passing game, that would loosen things up, that would get Jacksonville out of their base defense and probably find a little bit more running room for the running backs. That didn't materialize, and then when the Colts fell down, when they got behind by so many points, you kind of have no option but to throw the ball, and the run game becomes kind of an afterthought. And that's kind of how that played out here for the Colts. So for people wondering why they didn't run the ball that much, especially when they just signed their running back to a 3-year extension for $42 million, that is why. And also, let's also face it, Taylor was only playing his second game with the Colts this year. He had 13 touches in this game, 8 carries and 5 catches, including a 40-yard reception. Now, the other catches obviously didn't get much because he had 5 catches for 46 yards, and Moss had 6 catches for 38. But JT's not all the way back yet, and I think he's going to get there in a couple of weeks and kind of be able to be that workhorse. But, I was reading some other stuff, and it kind of reminds me of how we're going to have to play this game as we did in 2021. Now, Minshew, in most circumstances, not as mistake-prone as some other quarterbacks in the league, but they're going to have to lean on that run game, and that'll only help the passing game if they can do that. But just not much room there to run against Jacksonville. And I think the Colts kind of knew what they may have been facing going into this game, and so they kind of tried to game plan for it, and the results were decidedly not in their favor. Run down a few stats here. Michael Pittman Jr., 9 catches, 109 yards. Probably had the opportunity for a couple of nice plays over the middle, but just Minshew just sailed a couple of those throws. Kylan Granson, 3 catches for 67 yards, included a long of 45. Had a couple of big catches on the same drive there. Josh Downs, a quiet day. He did get his first touchdown, but just 5 catches for 21 yards. Loss dropping the Colts to 3-3, and it puts Jacksonville in prime position atop the AFC South. Some of those teams starting to put some separation in. And I think a lot of people thought Jacksonville would be the cream of the crop here in a division that's really not very good. I think the Colts have surprised. I think the Houston Texans have surprised. The Tennessee Titans so far have been disappointing as they lost an overseas game, and now they're 2-4 and at the bottom of the division. But I just can't really ever count those guys out, although I don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be looking like. In most seasons, I think when your team loses and you look at the schedule and you see the Cleveland Browns there coming up next, you feel pretty good about things. But this is not the world's greatest Cleveland Browns team, but this defense for the Browns is fierce. We'll talk about that in Thursday's preview show, but it's going to be a tough matchup for the Colts here. They're going to have to play a much better, a much cleaner game. That means in pass protection. That means in taking care of the ball. And they've got to be able to run the ball a little bit, but I think Cleveland's got just as good, if not better, of a run defense than Jacksonville does. So when you've got strength on strength and you're not able to do what you want to do on the offensive side of the ball, then that forces you to maybe do things that your quarterback isn't quite as capable of. The Browns are 3-2, and they shocked pretty much everybody in the football world by beating a San Francisco 49ers team that looked like it was absolutely unbeatable. And they did that with a practice squad quarterback. Offense, not much to speak of right now for the Browns. They may have Deshaun Watson back. He's got a bruised rotator cuff, so we may see him next week for the Colts. We may not. We'll just have to kind of wait to see what the injury report says later in the week. But we do know for the Colts, there will be no Anthony Richardson. He's not coming to save the day, and we don't know when he'll be back, if he'll be back this season. Let's hope he can be, but if they opt for surgery, they'll probably shut him down for the rest of the year, and we'll hope for greener pastures next season. But things aren't over yet. We could get a little Minshew magic, and that's what fans are going to have to hope for, because I think that's the guy who's going to be guiding the ship. And Minshew is a terrific commodity to have for any team. He's a smart quarterback. He's a good quarterback. Generally speaking, he's going to make the right throws and make good decisions during the game. Just didn't happen this week against Jacksonville. And as my colleague Mike Chappell has pointed out, in the games where we've seen Minshew succeed, he has come in relief for Richardson when Richardson's had to leave the game because of an injury. And you game plan way differently for Anthony Richardson than you do for Gardner Minshew. The one game he had to start before this game against Jacksonville was the Baltimore Ravens game, and that was one of the Colts' lesser offensive performances, I think would say, and the quarterback play was not great. Protection was not great in that game. They didn't have Richardson back there. Baltimore was able to prepare all week for Minshew because they knew that Richardson was out in concussion protocol. And so that's what we'll see now is Jacksonville game planning specifically for Gardner Minshew and a Minshew-led offense. And that's what we're going to see from teams for the rest of the season. So, I do think Shane Steichen's smart. I do think the Colts will find a way to get some schematic advantages out there, but there's only so much you can do when you have limitations. And Minshew's not a running quarterback. He's not a big guy. He does not have a big arm. He makes his money off reading defenses and throwing over the middle and complete, long drives, sustained drives. That's what the guy does. And maybe he'll hit on a big play because he hit on a couple, in this game against the Jaguars. And it's going to be tough sledding until the Colts can kind of get JT going a little bit. So again, that's Colts versus Browns, Lucas Oil Stadium. At least it's a home game for them. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS 4. We will have more Anthony Richardson news. We will have a complete preview of that Cleveland Browns game when Dave and Mike join me on Thursday for the latest episode of the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. For Dave and Mike, and thank you to all of our listeners, I'm Matt Adams.